that brings me to the next point, that in religious context, and that goes beyond the Catholic Church, in religious context, sexual abuse is intrinsically linked to spiritual abuse. That means that survivors of sexual abuse often have another layer of their abuse story, that is the spiritual abuse that came with the sexual abuse, that preceded it or followed it. So not every story of spiritual abuse has an element of sexual abuse, but every story of sexual abuse, in my opinion, in a religious context, has an element of spiritual abuse. Sexual abuse is often preceded and accompanied by acts of spiritual abuse. That is because the perpetrator uses his spiritual role to lead the victim into submission. So kind of he manipulates, he breaks the victim before he even starts the sexual abuse. Making them docile and trusting. And another very important or crucial element of spiritual abuse, he teaches them to distrust themselves in their own inner voice. So he makes sure they follow him, whatever he does, even if they're no longer comfortable, because they have learned to distrust themselves. Most perpetrators, not all, but most perpetrators in a religious context use a spiritual frame for their actions. That could be, for example, something like God wants it, and that can be different. You know, some tell a story that God wants this as a punishment for you, or He wants this as a divine union between us, or He wants it as a blessing, or else the spiritual frame could be God. This is your fault. This is your fault because you're possessed, or you're somehow so bad. You're so inherently bad and sinful that I cannot resist the temptation. And in many, many cases, I dare say in the Catholic Church, in every single case of sexual abuse, spiritual abuse follows the abuse experience, because victims are bullied into forgiving. They are shamed for going public or for wanting justice or financial compensation. And this shaming is a form of spiritual abuse, because it's along spiritual lines. You know, you should be grateful and forgiving, and these are spiritual narratives. So it's a form of spiritual abuse.